Hello, everyone. To get started with our presentation, I'm Joe Grebenstein from the MBDA Federal Procurement Center, and this will be the... I'm sorry, people are still logging in. Can everyone on the line hear me? I'm assuming you can. If during the presentation, if you'll please keep your phones on mute. Whenever you want to ask a question, just go ahead and unmute your phone and ask the question. We will be stopping at certain points to take questions, but it is okay if you have a question to ask it during the presentation. We do want this to be interactive, and we're looking forward to a great presentation here from Mr. Beecher. And I just wanted to tell you a little bit about our session today. This will be the first of a number of sessions to launch the MBDA Federal Procurement Working Group. The Procurement Center will be leading this group, and we will have regular monthly calls. In addition, we'll have a series of speakers. Mr. Beecher is the first speaker. He'll be talking about Corps of Engineers opportunities today, but we also have Tom Lenny from the VA will be coming to talk about VA opportunities. We'll have, a number of OSDBU directors from different agencies that will be joining us. Our next presentation will be the OSDBU director from the Defense Logistics Agency. After that, we'll be having DHS, Tony Bell from DHS. We'll have speakers from National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, SBA, GSA, and a number of other agencies. So we're looking forward to a very interesting series of sessions and great speakers, and each session will be centered around actual upcoming opportunities, particularly small business or minority focused opportunities, not minority focused, but opportunities that would be a great fit for our clients, the clients of MBDA. We'll also be conducting monthly sessions, monthly conference calls for the Federal Procurement Working Group, and the purpose of this group and those calls will be to facilitate more collaboration with the MBDA centers so that we can help more minority-owned businesses to target federal opportunities. We'll also be distributing federal opportunities and discussing any issues that pertain to federal procurement. I'd like to turn it over to Patricia Luna, and Patricia Luna will be... I'm sorry, did someone have a question?
No,
okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay, that's fine. I'll go ahead and turn this over to Dr. Patricia Luna. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Welcome once again to the exciting forum with Mr. Jack Beecher, whom recently retired from the Army Corps of Engineers, or USACE, as we might be using the acronym very frequently today. Our goal for these federal sessions is 1, receive an understanding of the mission of respective agencies. 2, for information about navigating the agency from our guest speakers. And 3, insight on some upcoming opportunities within the agency. Our speaker today has prepared an amazing presentation that covers all 3 areas, and we're thrilled that Mr. Beecher has not only researched but is going to present on 25 contracting opportunities. This being our first of many, I must say he certainly sets the bar very high. Jack recently retired from the Norfolk District Corps of Engineers after a career that spanned 40 years, including his time in the active Army tour of duty in Vietnam in 1960. Jack has been with the Army for 5 years. While with the Norfolk, positions range in entry-level surveying tech to the Deputy Chief of Contracting to the Chief of the Norfolk District Small Business Programs Office. The latter position Jack held for about 15 years, he says, were the most engaging and fulfilling years with USACE. During those years, the Norfolk became one of the best in USACE in terms of getting contracts into the hands of small businesses. During one 5-year period, Norfolk District averaged 51% total program dollars to across the region. In 2008, Jack was the Chief of Engineers as manager for the government's newest small business category, Service-Disabled Veteran-Owned Small Businesses, or SDO. He led Best Command and Contract Awards to Service-Disabled Veteran-Owned Small Businesses. USACE exceeded statutory goal 3 years in a row and was a major factor in the Army exceeding 3% for the first 12. Jack, although retired from the Army Corps, is not retired from assisting small businesses. He continues to consult with businesses across the country to help facilitate their desire to get involved in federal government small business program. After 45 years with the Army, Jack is still driven to serve, and we thank you, sir, for your service and for taking the time to offer your expertise with us today. Please welcome Mr. Jack Beecher.
Thank you, Patricia, for that great introduction, and I want to thank Joe and Patricia for inviting me here today, and also to the MBDA for inviting me here today. As Patricia said, I'm retired from the Army Corps of Engineers out of the Norfolk District. Spent my entire career there, 43 years out of the Norfolk District. I was one of the folks who came to the. It's a little rare in this time. People will go to a Corps district or a division, and sometimes within 3, 4, 5 years, they've moved on to another district, another division. But I just, the Tidewater area was my home. My family's there, so I just stayed in Norfolk. I was asked right before I retired, Jack, when are you going to retire? I believe at the time I was second in the district in terms of, there was one lady there, 48 years, Norfolk District. So I retired for a lot of reasons. One of those is something called secret. I think that affected, obviously, small business companies, but it also had effect on federal agencies. One of the ways it affected the Corps of Engineers and my office was I was told that going to conferences like, going to events like this, held, just events held in the Norfolk area, that travel would be restricted, and I really enjoy getting out to conference events like this. That was one reason. Another reason was polls coming to the Midtown Tunnel. That was a factor in my retirement, as well as some other things that caused me to go ahead and retire. But as Patricia said, I'm retired from Engineers, really retired from small businesses. I LLC, as you can see on the screen, I believe, Jack Beecher LLC, Limited Liability Corporation. I use that LLC to go to events like this, to speak for various federal agencies, as well as agencies like VA. Also, I'm working part-time for a company called the Mahorsky Group. Is they focus on helping small businesses in the construction industry. And as many of you know, if you're in construction out there, that can be a challenge to some small businesses, and especially for small businesses just getting started. As Patricia said, I was the program manager for the Service Disabled Veteran-Owned Small Business category for about 15 years, actually about 12. Bonding was a challenge for those young companies just forming, and so the Mahorsky Group has been focused on Service Disabled as well as 8A or any small business organization. So that's what I'm doing now. Just a quick overview of what I'm going to do over the next hour or so. I'm going to give you a brief overview, as Patricia said, of the Corps of Engineers and the way that agency is structured and how small businesses can get involved in working with the Corps as a contractor. I'm also going to go over about $2 billion worth of small business opportunities that I've been tracking over the last 4 or 5 months. Things are starting to break within the federal marketplace. I think many of you probably realized FY13 was not such a good year in the federal marketplace with sequestration and other budget constraints. I think FY14 is starting to pick up some now, and you're going to see, a steady increase in opportunities as we get into FY15. Also have at the latter part of my presentation something I call tips for success. I've done a lot of presentations like this when I was with the Corps, and one year one of my bosses, Colonel Backus, said, "Jack, I've reviewed your presentations. They're great information. You have forecast, you have what Norfolk's done, but I want to hear you give contractors some tips for success, things that you've learned over your career, things that they could do to maybe help them win some of those contracts." So I had to think about that for a while, but sit down and came up with about 12 different tips for success that I think can help all small businesses be more successful. And then we're going to have a Q&A at the end, but as Patricia and Joe said, if you have a question, a burning question that you want to raise, just call in and we'll answer that question as we go. All right, let's get started here with the first slide. First slide is a quick overview of the mission of the Corps of Engineers. The Corps of Engineers likes to build themselves as the premier engineering and construction agency in the world. Now, they may get some rebuts of that from agencies like the Navy and GSA, maybe even the VA, Veterans Administration, that does construction. But the Corps, and I guess I'm have a little bit of a slanted view. The Corps is an expert in the A&E, architecture, engineer, design, and then construction industry. That's what they're known for. If I had to come up with the big four, I call it, the types of awards that the Corps of Engineers does, it would be construction, environmental contracts, A&E design contracts. I know there's at least one architect engineer firm in the room here today, and also dredging. So those are the big four. Now, the Corps of Engineers buys a lot of other things, office supplies, furniture, etc., but by far the most of their dollars, as far as their spends, is in construction, environmental, A&E, and dredging. The Corps of Engineers is part of the Army. Now, the Corps had at the time 45,000 employees. Down some, you're around 35 now, 5 employees across the country, across the world actually. Most of them are civilians, but every Corps of Engineers, I'll go over some of them later in the video, there is a military commander. It's either at the district level, it's either a full bird colonel or a lieutenant colonel. At the headquarters level, there's a 3-star general, a 2-star and a 1-star. So the Corps is definitely an organization that is run by military officers, commanded by military officers, but we're very heavily staffed with civilians. So we are part of the Army. You'll hear me say we. I'm still trying to get out of that habit, so just forgive me if you hear me say we. The next slide, and I hope you can see it well, it's basically a map of the United States that gives the 9 divisions. There are 7 statewide and 2 overseas. Overseas divisions include the Pacific Ocean Division and the Transatlantic Division. Now, the Corps used to have a district in Iraq. That one has been stood down, but there are still 2 districts in Afghanistan as they're winding up work there. Stateside, there are 7 divisions, as you can see on the slide. Now, many of you out there today probably are more focused on the North Atlantic Division. That would be districts that go up to New England, and coming down will be New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore district right here in your backyard that handles the Washington Capital Region. And then my district that I came from is the Norfolk district. So that's the North Atlantic Division. Going further south is the South Atlantic Division. So those two divisions basically cover the eastern seaboard, and basically is what I am monitoring with my LLC. I look for opportunities for small businesses, basically from Maine to Florida, in those two divisions, North Atlantic and the South Atlantic Division. Points of contact for the Corps of Engineers. Obviously, every agency has a home page. USACE has a good one, I believe, and there is the home page site for that. A lot of information is on the Corps of Engineers headquarters homepage. Mission, you'll learn there more in more detail what the Corps of Engineers does. Obviously, district locations, where all the districts are located, and points of contacts. But more importantly, I think, is also probably a list there of each district web page. So if you're focusing, say, for example, on the Norfolk District, you're in Virginia, you can go to the Norfolk District website and pull up the Norfolk District forecast, which will be a forecast of contracting opportunities coming out of the Norfolk District. In most districts, we'll have a 2-year forecast, FY14 and 15. Beyond that, it's a little soft, but a lot of good information on the headquarters web page as well as the district web pages. I also might add here at this point, districts within the Corps of Engineers is where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. That's where the contracts are awarded. Headquarters here in Washington is obviously a great organization, but they don't award contracts. So if you're interested in tracking contract awards, or you're interested in awards through the Corps of Engineers, you're not, because they're simply going to direct you to Norfolk or Charleston or the LA District, wherever you're interested in marketing. Very important on that slide, the email addresses and contacts for the small business advocates. We used to call those taboo from that name. They're now, at least within Army, called the deputies for small business. So each district has a deputy for small business or a small business advocate. You can find those there. Those are your first points of contact for any Corps of Engineers district or division. So if you're interested in marketing, again, the Norfolk District, my replacement there is a guy by the name of Adam Ball. You can find Adam's information at the Norfolk District website. And what you would do is contact Adam, make an appointment to come in, meet with him, where he'll listen to your capabilities, and then tell you what opportunities may be coming out of the Norfolk District that he could assist you with. And that's kind of the way that works with all the Corps districts. Your first point of contact is with that small business chief, because he or she knows what that district has coming up this fiscal year and into FY15, and they also know project managers and contracting officers within the district who have those particular procurements. So that's kind of a brief overview of the Corps of Engineers. Any question on what I just went over? I'll stop here briefly and see if you have any questions at this point. All right. The next slide, what you see on this slide is the small business, federal small business goals, that each agent, the Corps of Engineers, but the Army, the Guard, the Air Force, they all have these goals to meet that you see on the slide. Small business, 23% of that agency's total procurement dollars. It's not percentage of contract, total procurement dollars. 23% should be set aside for small business participation. Women-owned. This particular small business category has been out there for years, obviously. When I was in the Norfolk District, we had a woman-owned goal. It was 5%, the statutory goal. Really had no teeth at the time to do women-owned set-asides. That has changed. Congress finally instructed the SBA to look into ways that they could put into effect set-aside programs for women-owned. I'm going to show you some of those coming out now. They're in most of the NAICS codes. Some of the general construction NAICS codes are restricted, but there are other construction NAICS codes where you can do a woman-owned small business. Small disadvantaged business. Now that's synonymous with the 8A program. Many people think that federal agencies have 8A goals. They do not. There's no 8A goal. 8A is just a tool. Section 8A of the Small Business Act will allow agencies to do either 8A set-asides or 8A sole source awards, and those are 8As are companies small disadvantaged business. So we have a small disadvantaged business goal, and some agencies will use the 8A statute to help meet small disadvantaged business targets and goals. Historically underutilized business zone, a hub zone program that's been around now for probably 15, 18 years. 3% is the statutory goal on that. Contracting officers do have the ability to do zone set-asides. I'm going to show you those a little later on in my book. And then the one that's dear to my heart is the last one on the screen. Service disabled, veteran-owned small businesses, 3% statutory goal to all federal agencies. That law, Public Law 106- was enacted back in 1999. The sad thing is that not many agencies have met that goal over the last going on 14 or 15 years now. Corps of Engineers, I'm proud to say, has met that goal the last 4 years, FY 10 through 13, and from what I understand, they're well on their way to meeting it again in FY 14. So service disabled vet, very important small business category. We should be, I think, in the federal government, doing as many set-asides as possible when it's practical to do so for the men and women who served our country. The next several slides is I'm going to go over some actual small business opportunities that I've been tracking. Probably the next 3 or 4 slides are going to be IDIQ contracts or MATOCs or MACs, and I'll explain that terminology a little later. But let's get right into that first one. And by the way, this one happens to be the largest small business, largest 8A IDIQ that I've ever seen. And again, I was with the Corps 43 years, all that time in the Norfolk District, and the majority of that time doing small business. This is an 8A IDIQ out of GSA, total dollar value $500 million over the next 5 years. I believe that one is under evaluation now. So the ability to compete on that is now closed, but GSA is going to award up to 10 contracts to various 8A companies. So do up on that, folks. GSA is going to expect those 10 8A companies to do somewhere, because the work's divided up evenly, and it never is, by the way, to do somewhere between $50 million over the next 5 years each. So it's a significant contract that they put out there for the 8A community. Now, coming out of that contract, obviously, GSA is going to award to general contractors, general construction companies, but a lot of small business opportunities as a subcontractor or a supplier. So if you're not necessarily in the construction industry, in the sound of my voice, there's still hope that you can do work either as a subcontractor or a supplier on some of these large IDIQs I'm going to share with you. The next one there, and I'm really excited about this one, it's out of the Mobile District, a small business set-aside. Might as well say $500 million, but it's $499. Why they left off $1 million and decided to go $499, I don't know. But I like Mobile's acquisition strategy. They put that out there as a small business set-aside, but they're going to select one small business, one 8A, one hub zone, one service disabled. So you can see they're sharing the wealth And also, Mobile is going to help themselves, if you will, over the next 5 years, hitting targets and goals in all those categories. Obviously, Mobile has targets to hit in small business, 8A, hub zones, label. And they believe, and I agree, that by putting a small business set-aside out there, and then by selecting small businesses in each of those categories, it will not only help a lot of different small businesses in those categories, various categories, but it's going to help them hit their small business goals. I think it's a unique, a very effective small business strategy. And by the way, I called Mobile and told them that. I said, this is very unique and innovative. I'd like to see more Corps of Engineers do that, and they agreed. They said, we like this approach. Over on the screen there is a MAC. By the way, a MATOC. It's an IDIQ that the Army puts a name on it. It's a multiple award task order contract, but it's in the IDIQ, indefinite quantity family of contracts. The Navy has a MAC out there. The Navy calls these IDIQs multiple award construction contracts. 8A, competitive at $95 million over the next 5 years. Now, that work is going to be in what the Navy calls their Mid-Atlantic region, Virginia and North Carolina. Navy has another MAC out there, a hub zone set aside at $90 million for work in North Carolina. Now, the way these IDIQs and MACs work, just briefly explain that to you. There's going to be a lot of competition, obviously, a lot of 8As, a lot of hub zones, and small businesses are going to submit. These districts and GSA and Navy will select in up to, say, 10 on that GSA contract, and then they're going to compete again among those 10 for that $500 million pot of money. That's kind of the way that works. It's almost like a second round of competition, only it's restricted to the companies that win those MATOCs. Most of these will go out on what is called best value RFP as opposed to the seal bid. It'll give the agencies the flexibility to look not just at price, the capability, expertise, etc. Of those companies. And hopefully they'll select, in GSA's case, the top 10 8A companies that submit, and then they'll compete on that $500 million pot of money among those 8A companies.
That's the new IT-70, that's the 03 back.
Max.
So what I do, there's like Corp was one, I was going to do both of them.
Questions on MATOCs or Max?
No, you should have like one.
If you could, please keep your phone on mute unless you have a question, because we can hear you. Thank you. Okay, continuing with some more MATOCs as well as a SATOC, and I'll explain the SATOC later. Out of the Veterans Administration, the VA, by the way, a lot of negative publicity lately for the VA, but I can tell you the VA is the most proactive agency out there in doing service-disabled vet set-asides. As a matter of fact, they have a strategy called Vet First. So they're going to first look at small businesses that are service-disabled and veteran-owned before they develop any other acquisition strategy. The VA put this one out there. It's a $50 million MATOC that will be for work at VA hospitals in North Carolina. Baltimore District, right here in this area, has a MATOC out there for work in West Virginia and Maryland. That's at the $30 million level. And Baltimore also has a SATOC. Now, that's unique. This is a single award task order contract. So, obviously, there's going to be competition on that. It's a small business set-aside. But Baltimore will select one small business. It could be an 8A. It could be service-disabled. Could even be a woman-owned small business company. They'll select the best one based on the evaluation criteria. And then that $49 million pot of money you see there, will go to that one company. Of course, it'll be a negotiation process. They'll ask that company for a cost proposal, and they'll go through the award process. But that's unique. You don't see a lot of SATOCs. You see mostly MATOCs out of agencies. Out of the Mobile District, the Mobile District Corps of Engineers is known as it is the center of expertise for Army hospitals. Now, besides VA hospitals, obviously, the Army has hospitals on certain Army bases. Mobile District is the Corps of Engineers center of expertise for Army hospitals. Here you see some MATOCs that are coming up out of the Mobile District. They're divided up into regions. The first one there is the Western region, which would include Missouri West. That one is a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business set-aside, which basically means Mobile is going to restrict competition to companies owned by SDVO SBs. The other region is the Southern region, Texas through South Carolina. Again, $49 million MATOC. Again, service-disabled to veteran-owned. I'm proud of Mobile for putting those two out there for our SDV, SBO community. And then the third MATOC, they'll be advertising small business set-aside Northern region right here, North Carolina through Maine. Again, work on hospitals, on Army bases across the country. I might add here that I'm very proud that several years ago, and I know there's gentlemen in the room here who helped work on that hospital, Norfolk District was the lead district on a $1.1 billion hospital at Fort Belvoir. State-of-the-art hospital. If you ever get a chance to go by and see that hospital, it is the best in the country, I believe, on any Army base. We all know Walter Reed was on the BRAC list, and it's closing, and we already have service-disabled veterans that were transferred from that facility to that hospital there at Fort Belvoir, as well as they're doing renovations at Bethesda. Major renovations going on there where those wounded warriors will be transferred. So that was a big project. Again, $1.1 billion that was obviously awarded to a large business. But a lot of small business work went on there in the hospital. A lot of subcontracts awarded to small businesses. The next one is the largest MATOC service-disabled vet set-aside that I've ever seen. I'm proud to say that was a Corps of Engineers contract out of the Louisville District. It will cover Kentucky, Tennessee, Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. Those are the primary states that the Louisville District services. It's for construction work on military bases in those states. That one, too, is under evaluation, so the opportunity to submit on that one is closed. I do believe there are several Virginia-based service-disabled veteran-owned companies who submitted on that and will be considered. It's a nice MATOC for our service-disabled vet community. I want to get away from a lot of those large MATOCs and SATOCs and give you some examples of some smaller procurements that I've been tracking. Now, these are going to range from as much as $10 million to less than $25,000. So there's something there for everyone. Out of the Norfolk District, competitive 8A, to do some work there at Fort Lee between $1 and $5 million. By the way, that's a range. A district or an agency can't obviously post the government estimate, but they can give you a range of what that procurement is worth, and that one's between 1 and 5. Another competitive 8A out of Department of Energy right here in D.C. for the Department of Energy, being handled by the GSA. That's an 8A compete. Why is it an 8A compete? Because it's over the $4 million sole source cap on 8A companies. Then right here at Andrews Air Force Base, another 8A compete, $5 to $10 million, a training facility at Andrews Air Force Base. The small business set-aside out of the Navy, they're at Camp Lejeune, 1 to 5 mil. And there are a few women-owned set-asides. That second bullet shows you one right here at Fort Detrick, which is obviously right in the backyard here of most of you in the sound of my voice. Replacement towers there at Fort Detrick, between $500 and $1 million. And then a small business set-aside out of GSA to renovate the State Department building. That's right here in D.C. So a lot of work right here in this area. Again, mostly construction. Before I move on, any questions? Another project, this is out of the Wilmington district. This is a small business set-aside to do work at Fort Bragg. Fort Bragg, by the way, is one of the largest Army bases in the country. 82nd Airborne is headquartered out of there, and a lot of activity, a lot of building going on at Fort Bragg. Perry Point, that's out of the VA. That's a service-disabled vet set-aside between $500K and $1 million. Actually, there's two there at Perry Point. Close to my home there out of Hampton, Virginia, the VA has a service-disabled vet set-aside to work on renovations of Building 27. Again, $25,000 to $100,000 is the size of that procurement. I just wanted to share with you some of the smaller procurements that I've been tracking, as well as some of those very large ones. Here at Fort Detrick, service-disabled vet set-aside, that one is less than $25,000. And by the way, I get a lot of calls from companies wanting to know about those procurements, mainly because they're challenged with their bonding. Under 25, a contracting officer, actually under 100,000, a contracting officer does not have to require a bond from a construction company because of the small dollar value. Okay, let me back up some, because these are supposed to come in one at a time, but they're not, so I'm just going to start off. This is my tips for success slide, and basically it's things that I've come up with over the years in dealing with small businesses that I think they need to start doing in order to put themselves in better position to win some of these contracts. The first thing is they have to have some capability and past performance history in the type of procurement that an agency has out there. Now, many of you may think, well, that's obvious, but some small businesses might not realize that. They see a procurement and they think, well, that's not what I do, but I know a company that does it, and I'll team with them. You can award the contract to me, but I'll sub it out to them. Let me give you an example of how that is not the case. Several years ago, while I was at the Corp, Norfolk District, we did a service-disabled vet set-aside for a $50 million construction MATOC at Arlington National Cemetery. The Corps of Engineers started doing work at Arlington about 3 or 4 years ago. Again, it was a construction project at Arlington. Arlington has about $50 million worth of renovations they're going to do out there. So Norfolk District put it out as a service-disabled vet set-aside. I got a call from a service-disabled, veteran-owned company, legitimate company, who was an IT, information technology company. And they say to me over the phone, Jack, I'm service-disabled, I'm certified by the Veterans Administration. I want to go after that MATOC, and I have a friend of mine who owns a construction company. They're not service-disabled, they're a small business. I'll take that project as the lead service-disabled, and I'll sub the work to them, all the work. And I was asked by that individual what did I think his chances were of winning that contract, and I told him 0. 0 chances, because you're an IT company. The evaluation criteria is going to ask you for the number of construction projects you've done in the last 5 years, the dollar value of them, etc. You yourself need to be in the construction business to go after that construction MATOC at Arlington. So you have to have capability, past performance history in whatever type of work that you're going after. You may not be able to do all the work yourself. You may have to bring in subs. That's fine, but you need to have to perform at least 15% of the dollar value of that procurement with your own forces. The federal government is not looking to award contracts to general contractors, and then those GCs sub it all out. It's called a pass-through, and it's not something that we want to do. A company has to have, and I'll go left to right on this and work down, financial stability. And again, I'm talking more about construction companies here. And what do I mean by that? Several years ago, Norfolk District awarded a contract to build a dining facility, a new dining facility at Fort Lee, which was a BRAC base that was gaining soldiers. So we had to build up Fort Lee, built 4 dining facilities there. One of those was to a service-disabled veteran-owned company out of Williamsburg by the name of Corp. Corp got that award at about $6.9 million, a nice dining facility project for them. With that award, Corp got an award letter that basically said, congratulations, you've been awarded this contract. We now need your bonds. Do you think the Corps of Engineers also sent Corp a check, any advanced funding? The answer is no. That's not the way it works in a construction project. They get that award letter, they get their bonds in, then they're given something called a notice to proceed. They actually have to start work. In this case, it was to clear a 30-acre site that was completely wooded. So basically, Corp had to hire a site company to come out there and do that work, clear that site. That site company bills Corp bills the Corps of Engineers, and then we pay Corp, and Corp pays the sub. That's kind of the way that works. But in order to do that, Corp had to have some financial stability. They had to be able to pay subs in advance for work performed. Another thing that small businesses need to do, they obviously need to be in SAM. Now, SAM is the System for Acquisition Management. It used to be called the old CCR, Central Contractor Register. But in order to get a federal contract, you, as a small business or large, you have to be in SAM. If you're not there, even if you're the low bid or the company that is selected in the best value, the contracting officer goes to SAM to pull your data in. You're not there, they can't make that award. So you need to go to SAME.gov and register. If you're a service-disabled, veteran-owned company, you need to go through the VA and get registered in something called VetBiz. It's not a requirement for any federal agency except for the VA. The VA cannot award you a contract as a service-disabled vet if you're not in VetBiz. The Corps of Engineers can, the Navy can, but I'm here to tell you that eventually I believe Congress is going to tell the VA to run, and all agencies, to run service-disabled vet awards through that VetBiz. So I think that's coming. So if you're service-disabled, you may as well register in VetBiz. Marketing, FBO is Fed Biz Ops, sources sought. If you're a small business and you're in SAM, don't expect to sit back and have a Corps of Engineers call you because they see you in SAM. It doesn't work that way. You need to get out to each of the Corps districts or the Navy installations that you want to approach, that you want to market, and let them know who you are. Let them know what your capabilities are. Find out what they have coming as far as procurements, and then target those particular procurements. So you have to market yourself. Some companies are good at that, some aren't. I know some companies that the business owner is very good in what he or she does, but they're terrible in marketing the company. So they'll actually hire people to go out and market for them. That's fine. But you need to get out and tell Corps of Engineers districts and Navy facilities, GSA and others, who you are and what you do. You need to follow the Fed Biz Ops, FBO.gov. Register there. That's where the federal government advertises all of their procurements in excess of $25,000. They have to go in there, in the Fed Biz Ops, and then you, as a small business, can track what's out there, what's being competed, and make a business decision whether you want to go after those or not. Everything that I went over earlier on those slides was in the Fed Biz Ops at some point in time. Also tell small businesses respond to sources sought. I've heard it said that, hey, if it's a sources sought or if it's in the Fed Biz Ops, then it's the agency has someone in mind, and that's not the case. in most cases, well, in all cases where the source is sought, the agency is saying, I have this procurement to know what small businesses are out there. If small businesses do not respond, then it's probably going to go unrestricted, which means large businesses can now be involved in the bidding process. So small businesses, you see something out there, if you can do it, respond to that source of sought. It helps that contracting officer make appropriate small business decisions. I tell small businesses, have a working knowledge of the FAR. That's the Federal Acquisition Regulation, and by that I mean nobody's an expert. You know, I was a contracting officer for 25 years. I still don't know all parts of the FAR. Don't quite understand it, but you have to have a working knowledge of it. Let's say you're in construction. You need to read FAR Part 36 because that covers the federal construction industry, the federal construction program. So read FAR Part 36 and have a working knowledge of that. If you're a small business, FAR Part 19 is the Federal Acquisition Regulation that you want to become familiar with so you understand what contracting officers are required to do, and it's all laid out there for you in the FAR. So have that working knowledge. You must be cost effective. You know, just because a procurement is an 8A set-aside or even an 8A sole source doesn't mean that small businesses can, if you will, pad their cost proposals, put excessive overhead rates in, excessive profits, because if they do, they're not likely to get that award. A contracting officer still has to go through a price reasonableness determination. So again, even though it's a set-aside, you still have to be cost-effective. If LeapCorp, who built that 90 facility for us at Fort Lee, had come in at, say, $8 million on that particular dining facility, the Corps knew it should cost about $7 million. They came in at 6.9. We would not have been able to make that award, even though we had gone through a pretty lengthy advertising process and evaluation process. We'd have had to cancel. So you have to be cost-effective. Top left, integrity and honesty. Now, this is something that contracting officers really have a hard time evaluating. You can't put it in as an evaluation criteria. In most cases, contracting officers don't find out that they've got a dishonest contractor until after the award and they're into that contract and things start to happen. I tell small businesses, especially service-disabled, you need to build integrity and honesty into the fabric of who you are as an individual and as a company. And the reason I say that, I said especially service-disabled, there has been audits by both the IG and by Army Audit Agency that showed some fraud in the service-disabled vet program going back 8 or 9 years ago now. Not quite that far back, maybe 5. In some cases, there were companies going into the CCR at the time, and now SAM, certifying that they were service-disabled, and then going after service-disabled vets set aside